This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this seems to be the era for affordable Android smartphones, particularly unlocked ones, but we've seen some carrier-based ones too. And this is the Huawei P8 Lite, as you might imagine. It's the more affordable or light version, and this is the US model. I know this one that's available overseas. Specs will be slightly different on that one, but this is the one that has 4G LTE for both T-Mobile and AT&T in the United States. It's unlocked, so you don't have to pay somebody to get unlocked. You can just put in an AT&T, a Metro PCS, a T-Mobile SIM. Any GSM carrier is going to work. And we don't usually unbox, but in this case, Huawei did kind of a nice job with this slipcase. It looks like a boxed book or something like that set. So you slide it out, and there's the phone inside the box. And then we've got another one in here that has the manual, and then a fatter box that has the charger and the USB cable, which isn't the most exciting thing. And there's a little SIM pokey tool, which you're going to need. We're going to look at it now. So this is the Huawei P8 Lite, a relatively speaking affordable Android smartphone for the US market. This particular edition that we're looking at, there is an overseas model as well, but we're looking at the US model, which has 4G LTE for both AT&T and T-Mobile and some of their offshoot carrier MVNOs, that sort of thing. 5-inch display, pretty easy to hold, 720p display. It's 1280 by 720. This is Gorilla Glass 3, and it's a low temperature polysilicon display, which is sort of like an IPS technology. The design to me looks a lot like the Sony Xperia Z3. It's plastic everywhere, but they do a good job of not making it look like plastic. So we got the faux aluminum around here. There's our headphone jack up top. On this side, we have the stick out kind of power button. Again, it reminds me of the Xperia with the same kind of textured thing. Volume controls right there, and 2 SIM card slots. This is a dual SIM phone. Again, that's not a feature that's been so popular in the United States, probably because we just don't have a whole lot of unlocked phones. The idea there is, say you had 2 T-Mobile lines, one for work and one for your personal stuff, or an AT&T and T-Mobile. It doesn't really matter. You can put a SIM card for each in there, so you don't have to carry 2 phones. And on the bottom, the usual micro USB, and it has a single 1-watt speaker, but they've made it look symmetrical over here with porting out the bottom, not unlike the iPhone for that look. And on the back, it has a kind of striated texture. It's really actually a very attractive looking phone, and then the shiny faux glass look up top here around the camera, and that is a 13 megapixel camera with the Sony sensor, which sounds like it should be really promising. Yeah, we'll get to that. There's an LED flash there as well. Now this phone sells for $249 and available in your choice of black or white. It is SIM unlocked. That means it's not locked to any particular carrier. You can put any GSM carrier SIM in here. Not Sprint, not Verizon. They use CDMA, not GSM networks, not Boost Mobile either, for example, which runs off of Sprint's network. So yeah, GSM folks only, as usual, for unlocked phones. The display has not bad viewing angles, fairly IPS-like. Glare is going to be the biggest factor there affecting the viewing angles in the case of this phone. Earpiece up top, as you'd expect, and we have a 5 megapixel front camera that can shoot 1080p video. It doesn't do a bad job. It's not the best front-facing camera I've ever seen, but it's not bad at all. Now the 720p display, I know there are those of you who insist that that's absolutely fine, and in a 5-inch diagonal display, I would say that it is. I mean, Android doesn't have, say, Windows Phone's attention to fine typography to make even lower resolution displays look great, but this looks plenty sharp. Now, Huawei has really played with the UI here, and actually a lot of the customizations aren't bad at all, but I do question why they have to change so much, because it's kind of a learning curve for folks who are used to more standard Android. So our home screen is also our launcher. That's something that Lenovo has done too. So we have our icon grid there to the side of the main home screen, which has your standard Google launcher. They've got their time and multimedia widget over here. Icons not too out of the ordinary. Software buttons at the bottom, no hardware buttons for your navigation. And you can put shortcuts and install more apps there. Now, if you don't like that, you could install a third-party launcher and make it more Android-like. And for example, like, how would you customize the home screen? In the case of this phone, you have to pinch in, and then you can change your widgets, your transitions, your wallpapers, home screen settings, that sort of thing right there. And there's your home screen layout, your grid size, that sort of stuff. So when you press the home button, it doesn't take you to the palette of icons, for example, which is a little disconcerting. If you do the swipe up, press and hold, you can get to Google Now. Here's a strike against it. This is running Android 4.4.4 KitKat. No Lollipop. All the affordable phones we have looked at lately have been running Lollipop. Will this get Lollipop? We don't really know. So yeah, Android 4.4, a whole major version out of date. That's a little bit ouchy right there. It's a fully sanctioned Google phone, so you've got your Google palette of all the usual Google applications, and you see there's plenty of them there. Now in terms of software, the Huawei loads, here's our tools. You've got your FM radio, the calculator, voice recorder, magnifier, and an updater for the EMUI. And that's the name for their UI right there. In terms of bundled software, we have a 30-day version of Route 66 for navigation. We have Office Suite right here as well, and that can actually create documents too. And there you see the palette for opening and creating, and it can download some Office compatible fonts for you if you want. Other than that, pretty uncluttered. It's not a carrier phone, so it doesn't have all the usual carrier bloatware on it, and that's pretty good. This is powered by the Qualcomm Snapdragon 615 CPU. That is put it somewhere between the mid and the high end for CPUs. It's an octa-core 64-bit CPU. It's a pretty good performer. 2 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of internal storage with a micro SD card slot for storage expansion. Now with Android, putting apps on a card is kind of a mixed deal, so you can put your media and stuff on cards, and this is compatible with cards up to 32 gigs. Sorry, they don't say 64 or anything higher, so 32 gigs is the official word on that. So how do you expand storage and how do you get to those SIM cards? By the way, both SIM slots support LTE 4G, which is a nice touch. For example, the ASUS is only one of the slots did. So here we have an interesting setup right here. Actually, I would always think that the top would be number 1, but the top slot is considered SIM card 2 slot. And here I have, you can see right now, an AT&T Nano SIM in there, and it goes in crossways. Isn't that different? Now, if you want a micro SD card, you better have a micro SIM instead in this other slot right here. That's the tricky thing. So there's your regular SIM card slot for micro SIM card. So you can't put both a micro SD card and a nano SIM in this holder. It's going to be either one or the other. So again, in the United States, most people don't really rely on the dual SIM feature. So if you want to put a micro SD card instead, it fits in like so. It's a little bit fiddly. I tell you, you're going to try it every which way before you actually get it in there, and thus there's no place to put the nano SIM anymore, which we are going to put back in right now so we can continue demonstrating the features of the phone. The phone has a 2200 milliamp battery that is sealed inside. This is a sealed phone, so you don't have access to it. Given the fact that it's a 5-inch display with a moderately powerful CPU, but not too high resolution, not too huge a display, but it does have 4G LTE. Battery life is sufficient to last through a day with moderate use on a charge. That's not a huge capacity battery, but the hardware here isn't too demanding. We have single band Wi-Fi, 802.11n and Bluetooth 4.0. Sorry, no dual band here. Again, both the ASUS ZenFone 2 and the Alcatel One Touch Idol are kind of pushing it on the specs above this guy. Performance isn't so bad, and we'll check out a Marvel game so you can see how it does for gaming, which is one of the most demanding tasks. And also this has 2 web browsers, both the Chrome web browser and a WebKit customized web browser. Unsurprisingly, it scores similarly to the Alcatel One Touch Idol 3 running on the same CPU with the same amount of RAM, and you can see our score there. It's 87.99 in 3D Mark. This is the Ice Storm Unlimited test. In Quadrant, it scored 18,761. In Antutu, 35,576. Geekbench 3, 667 for the single core test, 2535 for the multi-core test. For SunSpider JavaScript test, where lower numbers are better, 1419, and that's the faster score with the WebKit web browser, which is faster than Chrome for JavaScript tests. So that's okay. That's not stupendously impressive. How about calling in data? Quite impressive if you're talking about a phone. We tested this with both T-Mobile and AT&T SIMs. By the way, T-Mobile people, it does support the new Band 12, so you got coverage there. You can see how Huawei has customized the UI even for the dialer and the contact screen here. So you've got a shortcut to send message right there and edit it and all the usual stuff. And when you first open up a contact, it does a little bouncy thing right here, which I think is unnecessary because just as you're about to hit that phone number, it bounces once. That aside, call quality on the phone was good. It was quite clear and fairly full sounding. Really a pleasant phone to use for voice. For data speeds, they were par for the course in the Dallas metro area where we live and work. Good speeds there, no slower than any carrier branded phone. And that's for both AT&T and T-Mobile where we tested it. Okay, so here we are in the camera, and that's a little bit of a mixed bag. Now, this has a 13 megapixel Sony sensor, which about a year or two ago was used in flagship cameras, so it should be pretty good. It's backside illuminated sensor. It can shoot 1080p video. First off, the camera software is a little bit odd. Notice it doesn't rotate to landscape mode when you hold the phone in landscape, which is what most folks usually do, is take photos and video in landscape mode. So you have beauty mode there. It's probably hard for you to read sideways. Video right there if you want to switch to video. This is color effects like sepia and posterize and all that. And the other one is a shortcut to take you to the pictures that you've taken. Now, if you want to see all the settings that are available, by the way, that's flash control. That's switching between front and back camera. You tap on that, and there you go. There's more camera settings. Ooh la la. A little bit weird there. The camera shoots 13 megapixels in 4:3 aspect ratio. Only it's going to be 10 megapixels if you shoot for 16:9 widescreen. Shooting, focusing speeds are all good. And let's take a look at the gallery. So there's our photo. It's okay. It's a little overexposed. There's a rose outside. You're not going to get any real depth of field kind of thing going on here. And the details are not really what I would have hoped with this sensor. Could be the lens's issue. It's a fairly fast lens, both the front and the rear one. This is a video. At first, we'll take a look at one more picture. Did a pretty good job of handling whiteout with the golf balls sitting over there. The details not bad there, not too watercolory, but a little bit painted on. And here's a sample 1080p video where there's a over sharpening going on. You can see the water becomes kind of dizzying and scintillating. Microphone does a decent job, but not a stunning job. So it's an okay camera. It's not a fantastic camera. I did expect a bit more. And I have to say, once again, the One Touch Idol really does do a better job. Even the LG Stylo. And we tested the 8 megapixel version, not the 13 megapixel version. And overall, it did a nicer job. So let's check out gaming next and hear how that 1-watt speaker sounds and how it performs. It should do pretty well. As a hint, the Snapdragon 615 is a pretty capable CPU. Here we are in the latest Marvel fighting game. Game could load a little more quickly, but that's okay. Game plays perfectly well. Ooh. And the speaker is loud too, isn't it? So there it is. Gaming on this is definitely a go. So the Huawei P8 Lite is definitely a pretty enough looking phone. Very thin at 0.3 inches, 4.76 ounces. Certainly not too heavy. Attractive, even if it might be a little Xperia derivative. The challenge right now is that there are just so many really compelling phones in this price range of $249 to $299, something like that. And I'd say the Alcatel One Touch Idol really, if you're looking for the thin phone with the same CPU inside, gets you the better camera, gets you a 1080p display that also has more vivid colors. Very pretty display on that. And then for you power users, there's this ASUS Zenfone 2 that you can get with quite a powerful CPU inside. That said, this is by no means a bad phone. It's not a bad phone at all for $249. It's just plenty of options to consider. So that's the Huawei P8 Lite. It's available now from gethuawei.com in the United States. You can hit up Amazon. I'm sure some other places are going to have it. And, you know, suddenly there's fierce competition for these unlocked, affordable Android phones, and some of them from your carrier, too. We just looked at the LG G Stylo, available on Sprint and T-Mobile, Boost, Metro PCS, for example. There's a lot of choices out there, and I have to say the Alcatel One Touch Idol 3 beats this one for a thin phone. It has an even higher resolution display and a better camera. And there's also the ASUS Zenfone 2 for an unlocked Android phone. Two flavors of that, two performance levels, and they also put up some stiff competition. So it's a nice enough phone. It's slim, it's attractive in that Xperia sort of looking way, and it's yet another choice that you've got. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.